Hi and welcome to this video which is exploring subtraction. So before we start, let's think of other words for subtraction. Could be minus, take away, find the difference between, lots of different ways of saying it. And often if you're doing functional maths, the question is going to come to you in words rather than just numbers set out like it is on the screen. But what you need to do is set out your maths problem so that you've got the number that you're starting with, the number that you're taking away underneath, all lined up in place value. As ever with any calculations, place value is very important. Okay, and we always start with the smallest place value first. Now all of these numbers are whole numbers, no decimals. So we're always going to be starting with the units. Now the first two are very straightforward, so let's go through these. 687 minus 453. So we have 7 minus 3, which is 4, 8 minus 5, which is 3, and 6 minus 4, which is 2. Now I did that very quickly. If it takes you a bit longer to do your subtractions, don't forget you can pause this video at any time and then replay it. Okay, moving on to the second, and again this is very straightforward. 954 minus 622. 4 minus 2 is 2. 5 minus 2 is 3. And 9 minus 6 is also 3. So the answer would be 332. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next one, which is slightly different. So if we look in the units column, and we're looking for positive numbers here. So when we look, we've got 3 minus 8, which would give us a negative amount, and we don't want that. So what we're going to do is borrow from the column next to it. And in this case, we're borrowing from the tens column. Now, what's really important to understand is that every time you move along a column, the column to the left is always going to be 10 times bigger than the column on the right. So, for instance, this is units. When we move along, we get tens, which is 10 times bigger. If we move along again, we get hundreds, which is 10 times bigger than the tens column, and so on. And this is important to understand because when we borrow from here, so we're going to take 1 from here, which will leave us with 4. And when it comes to this column, it's going to be a 10. So it's like we're borrowing from 50, so it becomes 40 up here. And that gives us 13 in this column. Really important to get that concept. Okay, so now we have 13. When we take away 8, we're left with 5. Moving along. So we've got 4 here, take away 3, left with 1. And then 8 minus 6 equals 2. And you'll see I'm using different language, but it means the same thing. Okay, so the answer is 215. Moving on. 545 minus 157. And again, looking at the units column, we haven't got enough to take 7 away without going into negative numbers. So we're going to borrow. So the 4 becomes a 3. And that 1 is taken over here and becomes 15. 15 minus 7 is 8. And then moving on, we've got the same problem again. We've got 3 and we need to take 5 away. So we're going to borrow again from the hundreds column. So this will become 4. And remember what I said, We borrowed 1 from here, but when it comes to the column to the right, it's 10 times bigger, so that will make that 13. 13 minus 5, again, gives us 8. And then we have 4, take away 1 is 3. Okay, so there we have it. So you're just borrowing from the column next. Obviously the column to the left as you're looking at it. Now the next example is slightly more difficult again, and let's see if we can work out why this is a little bit more difficult. So we're going to start here. Immediately we can see we've got 1, need to take away 5, so we're going to borrow. So the 2 will become a 1, and that's going to become 11. 11 minus 5 is 6. Here we're into the same problem. 1, take away 4, it's going to give us a negative we don't want. But if we look to the left, there's nothing there. We haven't got anything to borrow from. So what we're going to have to do is jump to this 6. So if we borrow from this 6, that will become a 5. And if we put it next door, that 1 that we've borrowed will make that 10. And then we have got 10 there, so we can borrow for the next one. So let's make that 9. Put a 1 there. And now we've got 11 minus 4 gives us 7. Here we've got 9 minus 0 gives us 9. And 5 minus 1 gives us 4. So effectively what we were doing there was borrowing. We couldn't borrow immediately from the left, so we had to jump 2 to borrow, and then we moved it to the next column and the next column. So that's quite a bit more complicated. So let's try one more like that. Okay, so let's put a line there. 2 minus 4 we need to borrow. So that is going to become a 2, and that will become a 12. 12 minus 4 is 8. Here we have 2, and we need to take away 5. So we need to borrow. There is nothing in the column to the left, so we have to jump to the next column to borrow. So this becomes a 6. We give the 1, which would become a 10 here, because this is 10 times bigger than this column. So it's like passing it down the line, if you like. This is now 10, so we can borrow for this column. So we cross that out, it becomes 9, and the 1 that we've borrowed goes there to make 12. 12 minus 5 is 7. 9 minus 1 is 8, and 6 minus 5 is 1. Okay, so set some up for yourself. Just write up some sums and try them out. And always have, don't forget, your calculator handy so that you can check your work as you're going. We'll also look at a later stage how you can check your work by adding. But watch this video. You can watch it as many times as you like and then give it a go. Okay, that's the end of this video.